Resilience is one of the most underestimated yet most transformative qualities that a person can develop, because it is not simply about surviving adversity but about using every challenge as a stepping stone toward greater strength. When you are interrupted, dismissed, or even underestimated, it is easy to feel as if your voice doesn't matter, but resilience teaches you that the power of your presence is not measured by how others treat you, it is measured by how you respond. Every resistance you face is like a mirror reflecting back a choice. Will you break under the pressure, or will you bend, adapt, and then rise stronger? Life is not meant to be smooth, predictable, and without friction. In fact, it is precisely the interruptions, the roadblocks, and the constant resistance that give us the raw material to grow into the versions of ourselves that are unshakable. Think about it. If the road ahead was always straight and easy, how would you ever learn persistence, patience, and courage? Resilience is not born in comfort zones, it is born in the furnace of resistance. Every time someone tries to cut you off, tell you that you can't, or throw doubt into your vision, that is a form of resistance. And that resistance, rather than being a wall that stops you, can become the weight you lift to build strength. Just like in the gym, growth happens when your muscles are met with resistance. If you never add weight to the bar, you will never get stronger. Life is exactly the same. Without challenges, without setbacks, without people questioning you or even mocking you, there would be no need to stretch beyond what is easy. Resilience teaches you to reframe these moments, to see resistance not as the enemy, but as the very force that is sculpting your ability to endure, to persist, and to win. It is tempting to believe that those who rise to the top, those who stand tall in the face of opposition, do so because they are never interrupted or challenged. But the truth is that they rise precisely because they are interrupted, precisely because they are challenged, and in those moments, they refuse to let resistance define them. Instead, they allow it to refine them. Every time you are cut off, you are given the chance to decide, will I lose my ground, or will I deepen my roots? The oak tree grows tall not because the wind never blows, but because it digs its roots deeper every time it does. That is resilience over resistance. When you are in a conversation or in a moment where your voice is repeatedly interrupted, you may feel frustration boiling inside. Yet resilience teaches you to pause, to breathe, and to recognize that every attempt to silence you is only proof that your voice carries weight. People rarely interrupt silence. They interrupt strength, they interrupt conviction, they interrupt truth. So instead of shrinking, resilience invites you to stand taller. The interruption becomes less of a threat and more of a signal that what you are saying has power. Your job is not to retaliate with anger or collapse in defeat, but to channel your energy into calm, grounded strength. That is how resistance is overcome, by refusing to let it break your flow, by mastering yourself even when others attempt to throw you off balance. Resilience also demands that you shift your perspective about failure. Resistance often shows up as failure, as things not working out the way you planned. But failure is not the opposite of success, it is a vital part of it. Resilience means understanding that every setback is feedback, every failure is a lesson, every closed door is a redirection towards something greater. Those who lack resilience see resistance as the end, those who possess it see resistance as a beginning. They recognize that when something doesn't go their way, they are being stretched, challenged, and strengthened for the next level of their journey. This mindset transforms resistance from a stumbling block into a stepping stone. Think of any great figure in history, whether in politics, social movements, business, or the arts. None of them rose without resistance. In fact, their legacy is often defined by how they handled the resistance they faced. Martin Luther King Jr. was interrupted constantly, not just in speeches but in his mission, yet his resilience created a movement that could not be silenced. Entrepreneurs who build lasting companies are not the ones who never face setbacks, but the ones who rise every time the market, the critics, or circumstances tell them no. Athletes who break records are not those who never fail, but those who get back up after every defeat, learning, adjusting, and coming back stronger. Resistance is universal, but resilience is the rare quality that turns resistance into fuel. At a personal level, resilience over resistance means practicing patience when you're tempted to lash out. It means learning to adapt when life changes in ways you did not expect. It means understanding that the road to your goals will never be without interruptions, but those interruptions can become part of the rhythm that moves you forward. For example, when someone tries to undermine your worth, resilience whispers, "Their words do not define me." When circumstances force you to take a detour, resilience says, "This is not the end of my journey, only a redirection." When failure makes you question your ability, resilience reminds you, "This is proof that I am trying, and trying is the soil of growth." What makes resilience powerful is not just its ability to withstand resistance, but its ability to transform it. A resilient person does not simply survive difficulties, they thrive because of them. They use resistance as a teacher, as a trainer, as a guide. They extract lessons, develop thicker skin, and sharpen their focus. Every pushback becomes preparation. Every interruption becomes an invitation to clarify their message. Every opposition becomes an opportunity to showcase the depth of their conviction. Resilience over resistance is not about avoiding pain or denying difficulty. It is about embracing the reality that life is filled with both and choosing to rise anyway. It is about being steady when others try to shake you. It is about knowing that your worth, your vision, your truth cannot be diminished by someone else's attempt to silence you. It is about carrying yourself with the quiet confidence that no matter how many times resistance shows up, resilience will always outlast it. The power of presence is something that often gets overlooked in a world obsessed with noise, volume, and constant activity. People tend to assume that the one who speaks the loudest or dominates the most space is the one who commands influence, but true presence is not about how much you say or how loudly you say it. It is about the energy you bring into the room, the conviction you carry in your words, and the confidence you project without needing to shout. Presence is the silent strength that can quiet a room before you even open your mouth, and once you understand how to harness it, you realize that you do not need to force people to listen, they are drawn to listen because they feel the weight of your authenticity. Think about those rare moments when someone walks into a space and, without saying a word, everyone turns to look. That is presence. It cannot be faked, it cannot be manufactured by artificial gestures, and it cannot be bought. It is something cultivated through inner alignment, through the discipline of knowing who you are and standing firmly in that identity regardless of the circumstances. Presence radiates when your actions, your words, and your values are in harmony. It is what makes someone memorable in a world full of constant distractions. Presence also carries power because it demands respect without asking for it. When you speak with conviction, when your body language is steady, when your tone is controlled and grounded, you communicate strength without ever raising your voice. People may interrupt, they may try to derail you, but if you stay rooted in presence, those interruptions begin to lose their impact. They may talk over you, but your composure speaks louder. They may try to diminish you, but your steadiness overshadows their noise. Presence makes others feel your authority not through domination, but through unshakable calm. This is especially important in moments of conflict or confrontation. When others get louder, more emotional, or more aggressive, the instinct may be to match their energy. But true presence teaches you that you do not need to meet chaos with chaos. Instead, you meet it with clarity. Presence is not about overpowering someone else, it is about centering yourself so deeply that you cannot be overpowered. The stillness of your presence becomes more commanding than their noise. The sharpness of your message becomes more persuasive than their interruptions. The groundedness of your energy becomes more memorable than their aggression. There is also a deep connection between presence and authenticity. You cannot project genuine presence if you are hiding behind a mask or pretending to be someone you are not. People can sense when someone is faking confidence, when someone is performing rather than being. Authentic presence comes from being aligned with your truth, from believing so fully in what you are saying or representing that others can feel it radiating from you. It is not about memorizing the perfect words, but about allowing your values to speak through you. When you believe in your message, when you are not pretending but living it, your presence becomes magnetic. People are drawn to authenticity because it is rare in a world full of pretense. The power of presence is not only external, it also transforms the way you see yourself. When you learn to cultivate presence, you stop feeling the need to prove yourself constantly. You begin to realize that worth is not measured by how much space you take up or how loud you are in a conversation. Worth is measured by the strength of your convictions and the steadiness of your character. Presence is the quiet confidence of knowing that you belong where you are, that your perspective matters, and that you do not need to diminish yourself to make others comfortable. It is the confidence of sitting in silence when others expect you to be flustered, and it is the strength of speaking with intention rather than reaction. Presence also has the power to shift the energy of those around you. When you are calm in the face of chaos, you invite others to calm down as well. When you are steady in the midst of resistance, you remind others that strength does not require aggression. When you speak with clarity and conviction, you cut through the noise and allow others to focus on what truly matters. Presence is contagious because it sets a tone. It sets a rhythm in the room, and others often unconsciously begin to mirror it. That is why great leaders, great speakers, and great influencers are not just remembered for what they say, but for the energy they bring into every space they enter. Presence does not come from external validation. It is not dependent on applause, approval, or agreement. In fact, some of the most powerful examples of presence are displayed in moments of disagreement. When you hold your ground calmly, when you allow someone to finish their interruption and then respond with composure, you are showing that your presence is not shaken by resistance. People respect that even if they do not agree with you, because it demonstrates strength of character. Presence is not about winning everyone over, it is about embodying who you are so fully that others cannot ignore it. One of the greatest lessons about presence is that it thrives in simplicity. You do not need to overcompensate with extravagant gestures, overly complex language, or dramatic performances. Presence is about being so centered that your words are clear, your movements are intentional, and your energy is steady. People remember how you made them feel, not the exact number of words you spoke. They remember the sense of calm, confidence, or clarity that came with your presence, and that lingers longer than any soundbite ever could. The power of presence also comes from being present in the moment. Too often, people lose their presence because they are distracted by what others think, by the fear of judgment, or by rehearsing their next response. True presence demands that you anchor yourself in the present moment, listening deeply, responding intentionally, and focusing fully on what is in front of you. This kind of presence makes you more persuasive because it shows respect for others, it makes you more memorable because it keeps you connected, and it makes you more powerful because it demonstrates mastery over yourself. When presence meets conviction, something remarkable happens. The combination creates influence that cannot be denied. You may not speak the most words in the room, but the few words you do speak carry more weight. You may not demand attention through volume, but attention gravitates toward you because presence naturally commands it. People begin to feel the force of your belief, the steadiness of your character, and the authenticity of your message. That is what creates impact, not the noise of a moment, but the lasting impression of true presence. Turning setbacks into shutdowns is one of the most empowering lessons you can embrace, because setbacks are inevitable. Every single person encounters moments where plans fall apart, expectations are unmet, and the weight of disappointment feels overwhelming. Yet within those moments lies the seed of transformation, a hidden opportunity to turn what was meant to stop you into the very thing that propels you forward. A setback, when reframed, is not a signal that you are unworthy or incapable, it is a test of your resilience, creativity, and belief in yourself. It is a chance to decide that the obstacle in front of you will not define your story but instead fuel the next chapter of your success. When setbacks appear, the instinctive response is often frustration or discouragement. People feel as though the ground has been pulled from beneath them, and doubt begins to creep in. But here is where the shift happens. Instead of seeing the setback as a dead end, you can see it as a setup. It sets you up to prove to yourself how resourceful you can be, how determined you are, and how committed you are to what matters most. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history, in business, in art, in leadership, have all been born out of setbacks. What looked like failure was actually the stage being set for an even greater comeback. Turning setbacks into shutdowns means that when opposition tries to corner you, you do not retreat, you rise. You take the very force meant to derail you and redirect it back with strength and clarity. Think about those moments when someone underestimates you, interrupts you, or tries to tear you down. Instead of shrinking under the weight of their resistance, you have the ability to transform that moment into one of undeniable power. By staying calm, by staying focused, and by refusing to be rattled, you shut down the noise not with aggression but with precision. A single well-chosen word, a composed response, or a quiet act of persistence can silence what once seemed like an overwhelming opposition. This is not just about verbal sparring or arguments, it applies to every arena of life. If you lose a job, the setback can either define you as defeated, or it can push you toward an opportunity you would have never considered otherwise. If you fail at a goal, the setback can either cement the belief that you are incapable, or it can push you to train harder, learn deeper, and come back stronger. If someone underestimates you, the setback can either convince you to settle for less, or it can light a fire within you to rise so high that those who doubted you are left speechless. In every case, the power lies not in the setback itself but in how you choose to respond. The mindset required to turn setbacks into shutdowns is rooted in perspective. It is about recognizing that resistance, opposition, and failure are not signs of weakness but signs of growth. Every stumble is evidence that you are in motion. Every mistake is proof that you are trying. Every failure is a stepping stone toward mastery. When you learn to see setbacks not as verdicts but as feedback, you free yourself from the paralyzing grip of fear and begin to see them as teachers. They teach you resilience, adaptability, humility, and persistence. These are qualities you cannot cultivate in times of comfort, but they are forged in moments of struggle. Think of the most inspiring people you know or admire. Their journeys are not defined by smooth, uninterrupted success. They are defined by moments of struggle, moments when everything seemed to collapse, and yet they refused to give up. They turned what could have been the end into a defining beginning. Every time life tried to interrupt their progress, they used that interruption as fuel to clarify their mission, sharpen their focus, and rise with even greater conviction. That is the essence of turning setbacks into shutdowns. You do not allow resistance to derail you, you use it to redefine you. This principle applies just as much to how we deal with people as it does to how we deal with circumstances. When someone tries to discredit you, mock you, or undermine your worth, the easy reaction is to lash out, to match their negativity with more negativity. But turning setbacks into shutdowns means responding in a way that leaves no room for doubt. It means showing through your composure, your clarity, and your confidence that their attempt to shake you has failed. There is a quiet power in knowing that you do not need to match someone's energy to rise above it. By staying rooted in your values and centered in your mission, you shut down opposition not by force, but by the undeniable strength of your presence and your truth. Turning setbacks into shutdowns also requires embracing patience. Too often, people want instant results, instant comebacks, instant validation. But the most powerful shutdowns are not always immediate. Sometimes they are the result of long, steady persistence, of refusing to quit even when the odds are stacked against you. Every day you keep moving forward, every time you keep showing up, you are shutting down the voices that said you couldn't. Every step you take in spite of setbacks is a statement that you cannot be stopped. It may not look dramatic in the moment, but over time, the accumulation of persistence becomes undeniable. There is also an element of creativity in transforming setbacks into shutdowns. A setback forces you to think differently, to find a new way forward, to innovate. When one door closes, you begin to notice other doors you might have overlooked. When one method fails, you explore another. What at first looks like a loss becomes an invitation to expand your perspective and grow in ways you would never have considered if everything had gone smoothly. Many of the world's greatest inventions, ideas, and breakthroughs were born out of moments of failure, when someone refused to let the setback stop them and instead asked, "What can I learn? What can I build from this?" The beauty of turning setbacks into shutdowns is that it creates a narrative of strength not just for yourself but for others who are watching. Every time you rise from a setback, you are giving permission to others to do the same. You are showing that it is possible to face failure without being defeated, to face resistance without being destroyed, to face opposition without losing yourself. Your example becomes a source of courage for those who are struggling with their own setbacks, and in that way, your resilience ripples outward. You are not only shutting down the voices that tried to silence you, you are inspiring others to shut down their own fears, doubts, and obstacles. Ultimately, setbacks are a part of life that none of us can avoid. But what we can control is how we respond to them. We can allow them to become scars that remind us of what we lost, or we can allow them to become symbols of strength that remind us of how we rose. The choice is always ours. Each interruption, each resistance, each moment of failure can either stop us or sharpen us. And when we choose to see them as opportunities to showcase our resilience, our presence, and our truth, we not only overcome the setback, we transform it into a moment that shuts down doubt, silences negativity, and reaffirms our strength.